This is the Common Sense Christian Financial Channel, and today we're going to talk about what to do in order to be able to start saving the money that you need to be saving. And in this particular case, we're going to be looking at what do you do if you've already blown your budget? How can you then start saving if you're just barely getting by? And so I want to give a few suggestions, a few things to think about for each one of us who maybe have indeed blown our budget, and it's just so full now that the idea of actually saving some money or paying down debt even a little bit per month is something that's not even possible in many of our minds. And so let's begin by the expenses that we have each month that are discretionary. In other words, we don't have to have them. They're not needs, but they're wants. And in that category is going to fall subscriptions. The average household in America today has 9 subscriptions totaling about $200 a month. Now millennials are even more. The average millennial household has 17 subscriptions per month. And you might immediately say, well, some of those subscriptions I need. Some of those subscriptions save me money. And if that's the case, by all means, keep those subscriptions. But if you have an average monthly subscription bill that the average American family has of $200, it's very likely you've got some things in there that you don't really have to have. And it's even more likely that you have some subscriptions you don't even use. The statistics that I looked at showed that about 30% of the renewable monthly subscriptions aren't even used by people. 30%, 3 out of 10. Well, just that savings alone on $200, 30% is $60 a month. You can cut that right off the top. I was talking to my wife about this, and she was talking about an art subscription she got one time. She's an artist, a good artist. She's worked for all sorts of different companies through the years, Current, Hobby Lobby. She's just good at what she does. And so that was kind of something she wanted to take to be able to continue to improve. But she said she maybe just used it one time, a $20 a month subscription. And then after that, it was just there. She didn't have the time to look at it, and it really wasn't something that was benefiting her that much. Well, I've certainly had the same thing with some subscriptions. I've had some newsletters through the years that I may have looked at occasionally, but didn't really benefit me all that much. I believe each person has subscriptions just like that. And so just cut down the ones that you don't use or that you really don't need. You just cut it in half. You can keep the ones you think you need. Amazon Prime, if you think, well, I got to have that. Some of the different things that we have that are renewable annually, like maybe you've got a membership with Costco or Sam's or something like that you're convinced saves you money. By all means, renew those, but cut the ones that you don't use or that you don't really need. And you can save about $100 a month with very little effort other than taking the time to look at your credit card bill and see what subscriptions you have that maybe you've even forgotten about. The second thing is eating out and fast food. This is probably the biggest item as far as discretionary. And a lot of people will immediately get upset. Well, I need to relax sometimes. I need to take my wife out after a hard day. My husband likes to go out for a steak every once in a while. That's fine. Fast food every once in a while, that's just the thing, isn't it? But the average American household spends almost $300 a month on eating out and fast food. $292 is the exact figure. You could cut that in half. You could very easily not go out as often, and it would even be more special when you did go out. You could very easily cut back on some of those fast food bills that are just, they're not even perhaps something you planned. You just drive past it and you think, oh, that'd be nice today. And while obviously you have to pay for some food that you eat at home, it's not nearly as much. And so let's say you cut out 2/3 of your dining out and your fast food, and you still pay for the extra at-home eating costs. You can save $150 a month if you're the average typical household in America. And you can do that without too much pain. It may cost you a little inconvenience, and it may be a little bit hard, but let's face it, you're trying to do something that is going to change your financial life. And by doing so, it's very likely you're going to change your entire life. You're going to remove things like unnecessary worry and all the anxiety that goes along with living paycheck to paycheck. You don't have to do that. That becomes a bondage, and you can break the chains of that slavery, if you will, by just using a little bit of thought and a little bit of sacrifice. Let's face it, most of us don't live in mansions. I imagine nobody that watches this lives in a mansion. You don't need it. Most of us don't drive Mercedes. How come? We can't afford it. The problem that we run into is we can see on the really big items that we can't afford them, but when it comes to the everyday wasted items, the things that just slowly drain our funds off a dollar or two at a time, we think we can afford that. But if you're going into a little more debt each month, you cannot afford these things. So take the time, the thought, the effort to look at your budget honestly and begin by cutting back the things that are the easiest to cut back on. The next thing is satellite or cable television. If it were up to me, you just get rid of that completely. My wife and I did about probably 15 years ago. We have not missed it a bit. Now we do have internet. We pay about $50 for internet, and we watch things like YouTube and other videos off of that. It costs, again, about $50 a month. And we don't have satellite or cable. Most people who have satellite or cable also have internet. So you could cut the entire $100 average bill out, or you could just get something more modest. You don't have to have all the bells and whistle packages that go along with satellite and cable TV. You could cut that in half and save $50 a month. And then there are things like cell phone fees. My wife and I were paying over $100 a month just for the two of us to have a cell phone. We shopped around a little bit. Somebody told us about a particular brand that was very cost effective. And now I pay $15 a month for mine because I don't use data on my cell phone. And my wife pays $25 a month for hers because she does use a lot of data. So $40 plus tax. We've cut ours from over $100 to $50 a month, and we have not reduced one bit the quality of our cell phone service. And so the next item is going to take a little bit of effort. Your insurance, your auto insurance, your housing insurance. You can shop around, and you can get the same type of coverage from a different company. Like I say, same coverage, same deductibles. And you can reduce your insurance if you'll put some time and effort into shopping for this easily by $100 a month, and maybe more if you start raising your deductibles a little bit because you hate to file a claim on something for a few $100s knowing that they're going to raise your insurance by that or more, maybe even drop you if you do. And so your insurance can be adjusted very easily if you just shop around a little bit. And so here is $450 a month, not by cutting things out completely, but just by cutting back on them. $450 a month will go a long way. If your average income is that of the average American, you're probably making a salary of a little over $60,000 a year. Your take home is probably a little over $4,000 a month. So here is 10% of your income right there that can now be used for savings and paying down debt. And that doesn't even begin to scratch the surface on the big items. If you were to do something such as drive a used car instead of a new car, easily you'll save $500 a month. Easily do that. It may not be the nicest used car, but it's not going to be bad. My wife and I have not paid over $5,000 for a used car in over 30 years. And we've had some repairs from time to time, but we only have to have liability insurance instead of comprehensive because we're not driving something that we're that worried about if it gets totaled and the other person doesn't have insurance or if it's our fault. We can go out and get something different. And if we have savings, you're able to do that. And this is one of the reasons that we're looking at this. By starting a savings account, that mind to keep mentality where the first part is after you've paid for your taxes and your giving, you just have the first 10% as mind to keep. That you pay yourself first. And once you've done that, you can afford a lot of different things. And you'll begin to start paying down debt that you may have at one time thought would never be paid down. If you start saving something this easily, and I can guarantee you, once you start getting in there with a sharp pencil and trying to figure out where you can save a little money, it almost becomes a game, and you start looking for other areas that you can cut down. This teaches us prudence. It teaches us responsibility. Something they ought to be teaching in high school, but to our shame, our high schools teach very little bit on practical finances. And even our colleges, while they may look at the macroeconomic picture, do a terrible job for the most part of personal finances. If you and I would put a little bit of thought into our personal finances, we could change our lives. As a matter of fact, think of it this way. By paying yourself first, after your taxes are taken out for your take-home pay, and after you've set aside the portion for your giving that you decide you want to do, if you'll take that first 10% after that and then build your budget, you will be building something that will last a lifetime. This savings will eventually increase. It will become a dream account. People, my parents just kind of scraped by for a lot of years, and they began to get more responsible with their finances. They eventually bought a property up in Estes Park, right on a pond out there, and built a beautiful home there. It was their dream home, something they had thought about for years. They were able to do that because they were responsible with their finances. Even after preaching for 30 years and starting off with an income of $285 a week on that preaching salary, it certainly was raised as the church was able to afford to do that. But it was never anything comparable to what most people make. But even on that, we were able to retire at 62 and start doing things that my wife and I had always wanted to do. My wife is working with Bible curriculum. I try and have daily articles and weekly YouTubes on various channels. And this is something that we both wanted to do. We couldn't have afforded to do that if we hadn't been responsible with our finances. And the way that you do that is you just start taking a little thought to what you can really afford. A new car would have certainly been nice for the first few months, but that new car payment would have lasted 5, 6, 7 years or more. And after that, the new car was no longer a new car, it was just a used car. So we just started off with used cars, and we figured out how to make a used car work and how to shop for a used car and how to find mechanics that were honest. Again, these things take a little time and effort, but you can do it. If you would just give a little bit of thought as to your budget, as to your stewardship before God for the goods that He's given to you, you're not going to live the life of a pauper. As a matter of fact, after a few years, you're going to find that your life is much better than you dreamed it ever could be. And you'll be able to do certain things that you've always dreamed of doing. You can buy that dream home. You can retire before you're too beat up to enjoy retirement. You can give to different causes that you've always wanted to give to. There's all sorts of things you can do if you just get your finances under control. You may have been going along for a long time and you may be thinking it's too late for you. It is not. Start today. This is a great place to begin to closely examine your budget, putting it to careful scrutiny to see what you really need as opposed to just the things that you kind of want that make life a little more convenient for now, while in effect putting you into debt, bondage, for the foreseeable future. Well, that's the video for today. I hope it gives you something to think about. I hope you find it useful. My wife and I have really found these types of principles useful. It's not because we're so smart and figured it out. It's because we relied on others who had these suggestions and they worked. But thanks for tuning in today. I hope we'll see you tomorrow. God bless.